Kia ora everyone, welcome along to this week's group coaching call, how to avoid common beginner injuries in running and triathlon. Now, the focus of this is it's not so you can diagnose your injuries, it's so we can discuss the causes of injuries and so we can try and avoid them. We're going to look at some simple strategies to keep you injury free and consistent with your training going forward. So, we're going to look at the most common beginner injuries, the role training load and progression has on the injury mechanism, why your equipment matters, strength and stability, as well as mobility and flexibility work, recovery and regeneration, and why that is important to keep you injury free, and also finally looking at your technique and your form. So the common injuries for runners, I'm sure you've heard of all these injuries before: shin splints, runner's knee, Achilles, ITB, and plantar fasciitis. They're reasonably common. A lot of people do get them. I think I've pretty much had all of them except for some major Achilles issues. Although after my long run this morning, my Achilles are reasonably tight today, but I haven't had Achilles tendonitis or tendinopathy previously. Let's have a look at shin splints to start with. It's basically an overuse injury that causes tenderness and pain along the shin bone or the tibia. There's three different variations of it depending on the mechanism, and they all get lumped with the shin splints label. And there's medial tibial stress syndrome. So that is stress fractures on the medial side of the tibia. There's the anterior tibial stress syndrome. So that's just minor stress fractures in the backside of the back of the shin bone. And then there's exertional compartment syndrome. And this is where the compartments that the muscles or the sheaths that the muscles are stored within don't expand with the muscles, and so the pressure within those compartments increases massively as a result of the muscles contracting but also growing. It's a nice simple surgery that just slices that sheath and releases that pressure, and the pain is almost gone instantly, although there is a little bit of rehab to do once that happens. And with the other two, you've just got to rest and let that bone heal. But why does it end up happening? There's a number of different causes that contribute to it. Sometimes it might just be one, sometimes it might be a combination of multiple. So the repetitive stress of running, how many strides do you do? I did 20,000 steps today. That's 20,000 impacts on my lower leg. So that repetitive stress will help build over time if you can't tolerate it. By increasing your volume or your intensity of your training too quickly, that's also going to cause a lot of stress that your body is not adapted to handling, and that is a massive contributing factor. Well, not necessarily poor, but your biomechanics that your genetics have given you might not be optimal for running and will build into that. Overpronation or flat feet are common causes along those lines, but both those things can be modified and corrected with appropriate footwear. That leads on to the next one: improper footwear. So footwear that's either worn out, lacks appropriate cushioning, and is not suitable for your foot type. That can lead through to shin splints, and spending too much time running on hard surfaces or also uneven surfaces can contribute as well. When we look at patellofemoral pain syndrome, so the patella is your kneecap, the femur is your thigh bone. The connection between the two of them can cause some issues as well. This is what's known as runner's knee, and it's basically caused by the kneecap not tracking correctly in the groove on the femur. If you look at the causes, there's some very similar causes to shin splints in terms of the overuse. Muscle imbalances is a different one in there. If the muscles on the inside are too weak and are not holding that kneecap in alignment, the tight muscles on the outside can pull that kneecap out of alignment. Biomechanical biomechanical problems due to poor posture or foot biomechanics. Once again, flat feet and high arches come into the frame there with different types of feet. Unsupportive shoes and previous injury. So if you've banged up your knee and you haven't let it heal fully, continuing to run on that can potentially cause the patellofemoral pain syndrome because you haven't had or haven't allowed everything to line up and recover from that previous injury. Achilles tendonitis or tendinopathy. Once again, the causes when we get to them will look very familiar across the board. Common signs that is going to be a painful Achilles or just stiffness of your Achilles and slow to mobilize through the ankle region, particularly in the morning. Pain during and after activity, particularly running. Just general tenderness, might be sore or painful to touch. And also the tendon can develop a lot thicker, particularly when it's one-sided compared to the other. Causes of Achilles tendonitis or tendinopathy is once again overuse, building up your running distance, intensity, or frequency of running too quickly. So frequency of running is how often you run per week. If you normally only run once or twice and suddenly want to start training 5 or 6 days a week, that's almost a guarantee that you'll generate some issues. Once again, footwear, the poor fitting, lack of support, or shoes with a very different heel to toe drops. So if you're used to running in a shoe that's got a moderate heel to toe drop of say 12 mils, and then you change to something with a zero drop, you're going to get some issues almost guaranteed. If your calf muscles are too tight, that's going to increase the strain on your Achilles. And once again, improper biomechanics or trying to change from your natural running form are all likely contributors to Achilles issues. ITB pain, it often will manifest as a sharp pain on the outside of the knee, and that will sometimes track all the way up to the hip. The ITB stands for iliotibial band and is a band from a small muscle in the hip region that tracks all the way down and actually attaches to the outside of the patella. Causes of ITB pain, once again, overuse, increase in volume or intensity, tightness through the ITB band, particularly with the hip muscles, the tensor fasciae lata, which is the main muscle that ITB attaches into, and also your glutes. Now, your ITB is not a muscle, it's a band. And so if you are trying to stretch it, holding it for 20 to 30 seconds, like is recommended for stretching muscles, is not going to be effective. You need to be holding that stretch for the ITB for a good 2 minutes plus. Another cause of ITB issues are your biomechanics, particularly if you've got an inefficient running form, improper footwear. Once again, if your shoes are inappropriate for your foot type or they're worn out and need replacing. And the last one here, plantar fasciitis. It's very frustrating if you've ever suffered from it. And it's pain in the arch of the foot, and sometimes that could also manifest in the heel. Repetitive stress leading to micro tears in the plantar fasciitis muscle, which goes under your foot. Basically, it's sort of like an extension of the Achilles. It basically attaches into the same point in the heel. Biomechanics, once again, if you've got high arches, that's going to put a lot more stretch on the plantar fasciitis as your foot flattens out during your running motion. Also, overpronation or flat feet can also contribute to and cause plantar fasciitis issues. Improper footwear, springing up again, worn out running shoes or lack of support or no cushioning in them are contributing factors. And once again, tight muscles, particularly calf muscles and Achilles. So you've probably noticed the recurring themes that occur across the 5 main injuries there. And so it's important that you don't do too much training too soon, building up your training volume slowly and appropriately, never exceeding the 10, well, I say never, Don't exceed the 10% rule regularly. Every now and then we might give, if we've built a bit of a base first, we might give the body a super compensatory load as part of a planned training extension, pushing yourself a little bit further. But we also always follow that up with appropriate recovery. So 99% of the time, we don't want to be increasing our volume by more than 10%. When it comes to avoiding injuries, equipment matters massively. Correct footwear is very important, particularly for running. Cycling, yes, it's also important, but not as critically so because you're not impacting the foot on the ground with each pedal stroke. It's just holding it in position. With the running shoes, I really recommend going to a quality or a specialist technical running store to get fitted appropriately for the most appropriate shoes for your foot type. Now, each major brand, whether we're talking Asics or Nike, New Balance, Mizuno, they have a broad spectrum of shoes that will work with people that need a lot of stability through to people that don't need as much stability and in fact need a little bit more cushioning. So if you're overpronate through to people that underpronate or superpronate, then there's all the major brands have got different models that will support that. If you look at the Brooks Beast, which is a very, very supportive model, and in fact, it's more supportive than pretty much anything else on the market. But if that doesn't work for you, there might be something in the Asics range, the Kayano, for example, that might be appropriately supportive. Conversely, at the other end of the Asics range, Nimbus, a more cushioned shoe with less structural support, might be more appropriate for your foot type. And it might be that doesn't work for you for some reason. So you might look at the Mizuno Wave Rider or one of the more neutral shoes in a different brand. A lot of people say Asics are the best, or New Balance are the best, or Mizuno are the best, or Nike is the best. They've all got quality shoes right across that spectrum. So make sure you get fitted and try out for the appropriate shoe. Throughout New Zealand, there's a number of quality shoe stores that do that. All the shoe clinics, I can put my hand on my heart and say, are top quality. And there's also a number of specialist sports shoe stores around the place from other brands, whether it be Smith Sports Shoes or Shoe Science if you're up near Auckland. But Shoe Clinic is my go-to and has been for 25 plus years now. Strength and stability work is also very important, although for recreational athletes, it's not as critical as often made out. The best conditioning you can get is doing the activity you're trying to get conditioned for. So if you're trying to be a runner, the bulk of your training time is going to be put towards running. If you've got a lot of spare time to fit in the strength and stability work, then that is going to be beneficial. Focus on the core, the hips, the glutes, keeping that hip nice and stable, particularly for the running side of things, but also for cycling and also swimming. Having that strong core will keep you nice and horizontal in the water. So as time allows, it's supplementary training on top of your primary training. If you're a triathlete, swim, bike, run. If you're a half marathon runner, running. If you're a cyclist, cycling, etc. Mobility and flexibility is important. Regular stretching will help keep you injury-free. Recommend a minimum of 10 minutes after each and every session, as well as having a dedicated weekly session of a little bit longer. Now, the stretching, it can be something structured like a yoga session, whether in person or online, or it can be something a little bit more less structured, and you just spend 30 minutes focusing on stretching any particular muscles that are tight from the training you've done during that week, or if you've done some manual labor, cutting some firewood, or you're a farmer and spend a lot of time working out in the field, literally, then putting the focus on stretching the muscle groups that are tight is very important. You don't want to be stretching, however, in the acute phase after you've been injured. So wait 48 hours before including any stretching, allowing that muscle to recover. Ice it, rest it, compress it, and elevate it, all the normal key things to do to help recover from that injury quicker. To help with that recovery and regeneration, quality sleep, nutrition are the two biggest factors in terms of improving that. If you have poor sleep, your body is focusing on doing other things. You're not getting that recovery. You're not going to be able to perform optimally at future sessions, and that will help put you in a position where injury is likely. If you are injured, poor quality of sleep will mean that you don't get to recover from that injury and improve and then start building on your fitness. That's one reason why I recommend rest days and including that flexibility training on those rest days so you're doing something productive for your training. Technique and form are also important, particularly with running. It's also important for cycling and swimming, but a lot of people in recent years have been trying to change their running form. There's been a lot of research around it. The best running form is what comes naturally for you. As you change your pace, your running style will change subtly. You'll end up moving forward onto the balls of your foot, more midfoot running as you go faster. If you're just going for a level 2 run, you don't need to be running on the balls of your feet, that forefoot plant. The heel rolling forward is going to help impact or reduce that impact as a shock absorbing, cushioning style of running. The speed will come with that higher leg turnover and moving forward on the balls of the feet. Swim stroke for triathletes and swimmers, this is very important. Getting that good catch will set your body up biomechanically for efficient swimming and also improved faster swimming. And it means that your shoulders aren't going to be loaded up as much, and so therefore decreasing that risk of injury. Keeping that high elbow position during the recovery is also important for maximizing not just your performance with the swimming, but also helps keep you injury free. And with your cycling, we're basically locked into the position on our bike with a few subtle changes, whether we're down on the aero bars or moving onto the hoods or the base bar or onto the drops. We can also move slightly forward or back on the seat, but where the seat is set, the length of the cranks, the pedal styles, these are all fixed things. A quality bike fit from someone who knows what they're doing is worth its weight in gold for keeping you injury free and getting you set up optimally. Any questions from today's topic? I know Jason was first in, so we'll roll with him first. He's shaking his head. Jess, you're next down the screen. You and Tanya popped up at about the same time, but you're next on my screen today. Nothing from you? Anything from you, Tanya?
Yeah, I've got heaps.
Good.
Okay, no. So my first question is, how often should I buy a new pair of running shoes?
So I typically recommend 600 to 800 kilometers.
Right. So I've got to go and add up my training thingies.
Yes. I've got a couple of ways you can short circuit that. If you're using Training Peaks,
No.
if you're
I
using
don't use
Strava,
anything fancy pants like that.
you use Strava, I know you do.
Yeah, I do use
So
Strava. Yeah.
in Strava, you can enter in your running shoes and have different options in there. You just
Oh,
need to make sure that the information you put in is accurate and
oh,
reliable in terms of what shoes you're wearing.
oh, cool.
Now, that's
Right.
600 to 800. It's a ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
If you are lighter and more petite, then you can extend that out to 1,000 kilometers. Jason's pointing to him like I'm
It's
referring to
like
him.
whatever. So mine are like 400 to 500 then,
No,
right?
no, they're not, Tanya.
Shit. Ah,
For larger, and I'm talking particularly males, rugby players, that sort of demographic, they're going to get reduced mileage out of a typical running shoe.
right.
So there's a couple of ways we can extend the life a little bit as well. And one of them is not using the running shoes as regularly.
Yeah.
I, I don't do this now because I'm not doing as much running as I used to, but I used to run two pairs of running shoes, exact same model,
Rotate them through. Mm.
sometimes exactly the same color.
Mm.
and rotate them through. I'd
Yeah.
write on the heel a 1 on one pair and a 2 on the other pair, just with a vivid.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's an odd numbered day of the month, then I would use the ones with the 1. If it was an even numbered date of the month, then I'd use the ones with the 2. And so because they're getting extra time to allow the whatever shock absorbing material in it. Asics, it's gel, and they've also got the different foams in the soles. The different brands have got different technical things there as well as that foam. It allows just extra time for those to re-expand out to where they normally are, so you can get
Mm.
longer life out of those shoes.
Mm. Cool. All right. Yeah, that's the shoe thing's interesting, eh? Like what happened to Hayden Wild the other week in the was it the T100?
Yes.
And so, I mean, I'm going to the World Champs in 3 weeks now, and we've just been issued with the list of all the shoes you're not allowed to wear, that are banned, basically. So it's like, wow, running shoes. Who would have thought there's a list of banned running shoes?
Yep. And that's I haven't even talked about the racing shoes. You don't get as much mileage out of the racing shoes.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more fragile is not the word,
Yeah, but
but
flimsy.
they're not as robust.
Yeah.
So the mileage you'll get from a racing flat or a carbon shoe is not up there with a stock standard training shoe.
Yeah, cool. All right.
Now, Hayden was situation was really a technicality. The shoes were legal,
Mm.
but they hadn't been released to the mass
Released.
market
Yeah,
yet.
that's right.
And it was only days out from being released. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I think they've made an appropriate decision based on the fact that they were due to be released any day. Although I
Yeah.
also suspect he knew that those shoes weren't legal for that day, even though they were being legalized effectively with
Yeah.
in time with the release.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, second question is kind of similar. I've had a few bike fits, over time. How often should you have a bike fit?
Yeah, tricky question that one. At least every time you purchase a bike.
Mm.
If you are trying to perform at the highest level, then you probably want to be getting bike fits more frequently than just with each new bike.
Mm.
As your fitness develops, as your flexibility changes, your positions you can adapt or adopt on a bike can be enhanced. So if you improve your flexibility massively, particularly hamstrings, you can get down on the aero bars lower, you can drop the drops lower, you can your position is going to need to change. Well,
Mhm.
not necessarily need to change, but you can adopt more aggressive positioning. If you've had a period of time where you're not doing much riding at all, not focusing on your flexibility, that's going to go backwards. Or it might be you have a running focus for a period of time. The running, doing lots of running is going to make the hamstrings a lot tighter. All of a sudden, the positions you used to be able to adopt on a bike, you no longer can. So, making sure that when you have significant changes in your, particularly your flexibility, but also your fitness or changes in your training style, then it might be time to consider getting an updated bike
Mm.
fit.
Yeah. No, cool. I mean, like with getting down onto aero bars, I noticed like if I have too many pies, that can be a bit tricky, as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it's
And
all around and age and stage as well. Yeah.
yep, physique, if you've
Yeah.
had some significant changes in physique, that's going to
Yeah.
impact your bike fit as well.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, my other question. So, Jason, I noticed Jason's eyes popped when you said 2 minutes for the IT band stretch. What do you think of rollers and like trigger point kind of yeah, rolling and that kind of thing?
They're a fantastic tool. They've sort of dropped by the wayside of late. They were
Hmm.
popular sort of 10, 15 years ago. They were the be all and end all. They still are a great tool, both for the recovery, both as well as the regenerative effects of them. Yeah, quality time rolling is
Hmm.
on par with stretching.
Yeah, great. Okay, that's the end of my questions. You'll be relieved to hear.
No, no, fantastic questions. I'm never relieved. I always like questions. So we'll open things up to any general questions about your training, about anything not covered in the presentation this evening. Jason, we'll start with you again. Jess,
I would just say, it seems to be getting so much hotter down here in Dunedin. I didn't think I'd actually be able to say it. It was 19 degrees today, and I was absolutely cooking. But it means that on my last two runs, I've been like sweating and overheating so much, and I'm running at like 6:30 in the morning before it even gets really hot. And I feel like now that I've adapted to the cold, I'm really struggling in the slight heat increase. And I don't really like, I hit halfway, which is, and I guess it could be also just recovering from last week's race as well. But I feel like it's just made it so much harder. And I don't know if there's anything I can do about it or if I just have to get used to the heat again.
Just
yeah,
before Ray answered, I moved from Dunedin to Otorohanga, which is just it's in the Waikato, and we're inland. And I moved in February, so I moved from Dunedin, and I moved here in February, and the humidity and heat nearly killed me. So yeah, I'm really interested in hearing Ray's answer to this because I've experienced similar. It's like whoa, it affects your training so much.
yeah.
Yeah.
So spring has sprung in sunny Dunedin. The one thing you can guarantee is you're never far away from a cold snap hitting Dunedin. I will put money on it that the first week of November we'll see snow in Southland, and you may still get some snow later on in November, but there's always an Antarctic storm blows up in that first week of November because the tour of Southland is happening. So yes, it is a brief period of warmth. You'll then get another cold snap. Then there'll be another period of warmth. And although it'll start off nice and brief, as you move through spring to summer, those periods of warmth will get longer and longer in Dunedin. It's you will adapt to it as you move through it. So exposing yourself more and more to that heat will help you adapt. It's the best way to do it. Now, you can replicate that if you really want to by running on a treadmill in a warm or humid environment to prepare yourself. Um, Not necessarily the easiest or best way. Just realize that your body will adapt to it. It just takes time to adapt to it. And because you've had a cold, miserable winter in Dunedin, because every winter in Dunedin is cold, wet, and miserable, and you've been training through it, that you don't have that heat acclimatization that you used to have when you lived up in the North Island. That will come back quickly. And Tanya can probably comment that when she first got to the Waikato, it hit her and she struggled. She adapted to it reasonably quickly. When I was in the army, I went to Afghanistan. The Kiwi base was up at 2,500 meters of elevation. The heat, the dryness of the air, and the altitude hit me like a sack of spuds. The chief of staff, when he came and met me off the aeroplane, he set me up big time actually. He strolled out there with no equipment, and I had my pack, my roll bag, everything, just put it on my shoulders, and he just walked back. I'm sure he strode out a little bit to put the pressure on me because he knew my level of fitness wasn't ready for that thin air, and he took advantage of it to rub it in and go, "I've got one over you, Ray, with my adaptation already." Part of the reason I was going there was to work on an acclimatization package for Kiwi troops arriving after me. And so that was a welcome to altitude. Another time I got caught out in similar circumstances was when I flew into Denver to start a road trip through the States. Landed in Denver, which you may or may not know is known as the Mile High City because it sits a mile above sea level. We drove south in Colorado and ended up in a little town that name escapes me at the moment. Got up the next morning, went for a run, and went to try and do some intervals that I had planned for myself. Hadn't factored in the altitude that I was going to be at, and got the first set and was really out of breath. And the recovery was really poor. So I extended the recovery between the first set and the second set. and then started the second set and it's like, nah, I can't do this. I had to pull the pin. And it was only when I got back that I realized I hadn't factored in for the altitude. And yeah, similar deal for acclimatizing to heat or humidity. It can happen really quickly, or happen a lot quicker than altitude because you're not trying to get more red blood cells produced. That takes time. Exposure to those running sessions, if you can do them later in the day in a bit more heat, then you'll get those adaptations a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I guess I have to expect that. I mean, I'm going home in November, start of November, so I guess I'll be back in the heat. But just in the break that I went home, I got sunstroke my first day home from the sun. So I think I might also just be very easily, I don't know, attacked by the heat. So that might just be me.
Slip, slop, slap. Make sure you wear a cap. Make sure you
Yeah.
start the run well hydrated. Take some fluid with you for runs of about an hour or slightly longer, or anything longer. And that way you can keep on top of things whilst you're running.
Yeah, it does seem to usually be around like the hour mark that I usually die from the heat. But thank you. That's my only question.
But easily done. Tanya, any other questions popped up?
Do any of you use those? Is there cooling headbands that you can get?
Yep. No, I haven't used them. They are relatively expensive.
Expensive, yeah.
Yeah, so they're a great tool, particularly in those hot environments.
Mm.
You would have seen the T100 yesterday in Spain, as well as previous races around the world. Nice last week, there were a few people wearing them. They're
Mm.
only reasonably new on the market in terms of the last, I'm going to say, less than
Yeah.
18 months.
Yeah. Mm.
But the research behind them seems good quality, and with the number of pros wearing them successfully, uh,
Mm.
that's a strong indicator.
Mm. Cool. What is a stretch for the IT band?
I'll just try and set this up. I'm probably going to fall out the back of the. Oh, I've
Three.
got a chair. I've turned it side on.
Yep.
I'm bracing my hand down on it. I'm
Yep.
taking this leg and
Yep.
wrapping it behind the back so it's sticking out that way, squaring up my hips, and then
Oh.
sitting down into it, creating a bow in my leg, basically. I'll find a photo or an image of that to
Mm.
send you because
Mm.
with the background on the Zoom call, I know you can't see that clearly.
Pop it up on the yeah, the chat or the Facebook or something. Yeah, that'd be cool. Thank you. I was thinking, I don't even know if I know a stretch for that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And holding it for a good 2 minutes plus, and then swap
Mhm.
sides.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect. Anything else from anyone before we wrap things up?
I'm just going to ask one thing. Um, Sorry if you can hear people in the background. There's a lot of people in the hallway right now.
That's all right.
Um, I was wondering when the next round of your merch
Very
race
soon.
outfits.
I'm
Yeah.
working on a couple of things. I know you're keen to order. I know Jason's keen to order. Once the design is finalized, or once I've got a couple of designs lined up, I'll be pushing them out to everyone. And we'll vote on what the best design is because we won't be in a position to get two of them. Jason's telling me to get a hurry up on it. Um, so yeah, next couple of weeks.
Okay, perfect. That's all from me. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right, if there's nothing further, we'll wrap things up. Thanks for joining me tonight, ka kite anō, and I'll look forward to chatting again in a couple of weeks' time. I think the next coaching call or the group coaching call will be taken by Jade with the final for her nutrition series. If I do find the time to squeeze one more in before her next one, I will.
Great. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you,
welcome,
Ray.
guys.
See ya.